Alright folks, welcome to a special video. I'm the Mysterious JG. This is my 1,000 subscriber special Q&A video. I'm just going to have some still pictures as the background for this because I didn't want to actually get too distracted by playing a game and not be able to concentrate on answering the questions. So, yes. We're opening with a picture of a Canadian armored vehicle, no particular reason. Took it early during my tenure here in Afghanistan on account of the fact that you can tell that on account of the fact that the Canadians are pretty much no longer here. And for whatever reason, I found it amusing that this one was just kind of dirty and messy and had a Canadian license plate on it. So there you go. Read into that what you will. There's plenty of dirty, dilapidated vehicles, American and other NATO country vehicles around. This is not going to be a collection of pictures of military hardware. I have some really cool pictures of planes that I've taken, but I'm not really including any of them here because you're not really supposed to take pictures of the military aircraft. So you don't really want to advertise the fact that you've got any. Most of what I've got are just pictures of helicopters landing and taking off, ones that I was riding on for the most part. But yeah, so there's a picture of Canadian destroyer. Well, it's not really a destroyer, it's Canadian transport. And what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to try to remember to flip pictures after every question. And I should have approximately the right number of pictures. I don't really know, because I figured at some point I'll forget to flip pictures, so I didn't bother to match them up exactly. So you might be seeing some of these twice. You might not see any of them at all. I lined up like 30 some odd pictures. I had to be careful because I didn't want to include people in the pictures because I haven't really gotten anyone's permission to put their face up on YouTube, so that limited my choices. I had a really nice picture of the PX exchange shop here. It's actually an MCX Marine Corps exchange at Leatherneck, but there's like people in it, and you can see their faces well enough that they're kind of identifiable. Not that they're celebrities, you wouldn't know who they are, but yeah, for that reason, I was really limited in the pictures I can use, so whoop-de-doo. Alright, so let's go ahead and do this. Questions. Don't want to go off on a big tangent to start with. Wasn't sure how many questions to expect. Quite a few people who wrote in asked me multiple questions, and that's good because when I say quite a few people, I really didn't get quite a few people writing in questions at all. Nowhere near as much of a response as I got when I was, say, for example, offering a chance to be an officer in a Let's Play. So, yeah, apparently when there's something in it for you guys, you jump all over it, and when there isn't, not so much. But there are a couple of people out there, I won't name any names, but yeah, I was like kind of expecting questions from one or two folks who didn't really bother to show up. But I got questions from people that I've never heard of before, or I shouldn't say never heard of. I don't think I've gotten questions from anybody who's never commented on a video before. But I appreciate all the questions I got, and it looks like I'm going to be able to answer all of them if I want this video to be really long and seem like an epic event. So let's start going with it. The first question comes from Sir Taquito. He asks, what is your favorite game that you've not Let's Played? You're the best, capital D. Well, up until fairly recently, that probably would my stock answer. Because some of these questions, like, I thought of an answer, and I'll just stick with that answer, because even if I'm not absolutely sure that's the right answer, I could spend forever thinking about it and worrying about it, whether it's accurate. Because what is my favorite, movie, my favorite TV show, my favorite this, that changes, depending on my mood and whatever. But my stock answer to normally be what's my favorite game would be probably Final Fantasy X. I'll get into it more as we get close to the ending, but or maybe I won't. But yeah, it's video games don't usually affect me this way, but I was like tearing up at the end of that game. That was pretty it got to me. What can I say? Which is going to be weird to you if you watch that LP because I'll be making fun of it a lot. But no, I broke out the tissues for the end of that game. But now I actually am LPing that game, and I'm about a dozen videos in. None of them have gone public yet, although I sent Bobo Hotmail messages with 7-zip files of the first video, so they'll start going up when Lufia 2 is over. But yeah, that would have been it. But now that I'm LPing that, I don't know, on the RPG front, I guess I could fall back on Final Fantasy VIII. That's kind of a weird one for me because I was busy at school and stuff when Final Fantasy VII was hot shit. When the PS1 was a brand new system, I was kind of away from video games for a while. And I eventually got my hands on a PS1, and and got some free time to play video games again. But by that time, Final Fantasy VIII was out, so Final Fantasy VII kind of passed me by. I played it later as just kind of a, well, everyone's talked about it, so I guess I should check it out thing. But 8 was the one that was like the first one I saw that was, post-SNES era, so I ended up having a really strong, fond feelings for that game, despite its many, many flaws, mostly flaws in the story. So that would probably be, RPG-wise, that would probably be it. But then again, I've had a lot of fond memories of playing Starflight with Bobo the Vulture, and I say his friend, he's my friend too, but he's a guy that I met through Bobo the Vulture, and they communicate a lot more than I do with him directly. There's a guy who's, I guess I'll use his online handle, even though he's not a YouTuber, but his name is Lagman, and we play StarCraft, I should say, together, and not in the normal way that people do, where they get together online and play other humans or play against each other, but we usually get together and play against a computer opponent, because we're not very good, and we like to team up and work together, and not be real competitive against each other, and just kind of ally and be friends, and set the games just difficult enough that we can handle it, which isn't always easy because we kind of suck at that game. And what other game? Oh, but jeez, I can't take this long on every question, but this is a toughie. There's that. There's I really enjoyed the Metal Gear Solid series in general. Probably Metal Gear Solid, the original, best of all. Although Metal Gear Solid 2: Sons of Liberty was, in a way, it was disappointing in a lot of ways, but it was just so epically bizarre that it ended up being one of my favorite games of all time. The problem with that is that I am going to LP those. I'll try to LP most of the games I've talked about, except probably StarCraft. I doubt that I'll ever try to do StarCraft as an LP. So if the question is, what is your favorite game that you will never LP, StarCraft might be the safest answer there. And there's older nostalgia games too. A lot of memories of playing River City Ransom with Bobo back in the day. And he's done an LP of that, so I don't see myself doing one unless I do an LP together with him, which it might happen. But yeah, there's like older school games that I remember from when I was a kid, like really fond memories of my very first home video game system, a Nintendo, and playing games. Like, some of them were really not good, but I didn't know, and so you got good memories of like Super Mario Brothers, the original Super Mario Brothers, because I don't really think of Mario Brothers as, that's such a bizarre game. I don't really think of it as the same way as the Super Mario Brothers games, and Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, when it actually had real Mike Tyson. Even games that were kind of not that great in retrospect, like Top Gun, where I actually successfully landed that thing on the carrier once. That's apparently a big accomplishment, and blah, blah, blah. I could go on forever. But I guess my best answer I can think of for this right now would be StarCraft. I'll probably think of something better later, but I didn't rehearse my answers or anything. Alright, next set of questions. Oh, change my picture here. That's a picture of... Things are better now, but when I first got to Camp Leatherneck, that was pretty much the bathroom, those two porta-johns. We now got an actual LSS unit. I think that's the acronym, with showers and stuff. We used to have a shower tent. I don't have any pictures of it. That's where this famous story of the Jordanian soldier with his feet in the sink is from. But yeah, those are still there, and they're still useful if you want to empty out like a pee bottle or something like that, I suppose. They're still there. There's at least one guy in the camp who claims that he only uses them because he prefers porta-johns. So, Nate Halos wrote in and asked me the question, what's your favorite MST3K episode? Here's another one. I could talk about this for hours. My stock answer to this one is Monster A Go-Go. I don't really think that's my favorite one to watch. I think I recognize that I enjoy that episode a lot more than most Mystery Science Theater fans do, because my favorite Mystery Science Theater episodes are almost always the ones where the movie that they're watching is just punishingly dreadful on its own merits. Generally, I don't like it that much. They can make it really funny, but when they watch a movie that's actually not that bad and they make jokes about it, especially if, and this seemed to happen in the Mike era more than the Joel era, and it really happens a lot with Riff Tracks. The movie isn't really that bad at all, and the jokes they're making about it are just kind of mean-spirited and unfair. That's kind of, I don't like those episodes as much. But Monster of Go-Go is just such a wretched movie that it really deserves whatever they can throw at it. And the ending. I don't want to spoil the ending of Monster of Go-Go, but it blows your mind. Like, by the time you're three-quarters of the way through Monster of Go-Go, you know that it's not going to have an ending that's going to salvage the rest of the movie. But still, the ending for that is so awful. It's incredible. I can talk about Mystery Science Theater some more. Probably, I'll give that as my stock answer, but probably the real answer is my favorite thing about Mystery Science Theater is that when you've got like a Sunday afternoon or even a Saturday or even a Friday, any day where you're not working the next day or where you just got the big chunk of time off where you really don't have any responsibilities, you can just kick back and totally be a slug. I love Mystery Science Theater for that. I can do, I could play games on my laptop while Mystery Science Theater is running in the background. And in situations like that, when you've got like a bunch of time free, like a couple of hours free, I always love to watch a two-part Mystery Science Theater. Something like, I'm not talking like the Mystery Science Theater Hour where they split it into two, but I mean something where they did a movie and a sequel. Like if you'd have to have an entire day free. I don't think I've ever watched the riff tracks of the Lord of the Rings movies all in one go, but you could theoretically watch the riff tracks of like the Star Wars prequels all in one go or whatever. But I'm more like, if I don't have any place I got to be at all, and I know I can cut it off and get up and go at any time if something does come up, but I'll just like start watching Master Ninja and Master Ninja 2, or Fugitive Alien and Star Force Fugitive Alien 2. And with that being said, probably the episode that I've gotten the most joy from over the years would be like Fugitive Alien. There's some really great jokes in that one, ones that I'll like throw out randomly at Bobo at any time. I might be like, "It's called the Devil's Desert," and he'll know to say, "Sounds pretty neat," something like that. Or, "Oh, run away, then they'll be sorry," whatever. There's little lines from that movie. But again, the stock answer is Monster of Go-Go, because that ending is just incredible. While I'm talking about it, and I'll move on now after this, I have enjoyed, generally speaking, because nobody asked, but it's kind of a corollary of this, I've been enjoying Cinematic Titanic more than I've enjoyed riff tracks. Although there's only been really one, maybe two Cinematic Titanics where when they came out, I was kind of disappointed, but only because the other one set the bar so high. Like, there was a black and white Roger Corman one that was just kind of dull and plotting in the normal Roger Corman way, and they really couldn't do that much with it, and I was kind of surprised they chose it. But like, like East Meets Watts is so freaking funny. But of course, Riff Tracks has done a lot more material than Cinematic Titanic, so I can sit there and say, oh, I like Cinematic Titanic better, but I pretty much buy everything Riff Tracks puts out, more or less. Riff Tracks annoys me sometimes because they have these sort of generic stock jokes that they could make about any movie, and it really doesn't specific to the movie they're watching, and they'll do that sometimes, and that's annoying. And Kevin Murphy has this thing he does where, there's a scene where they're picking blueberries, and he says, "Blueberries for Sal had less blueberries in this movie," and they just seem to throw that out anytime there's nothing happening on screen that's interesting, and they haven't had a joke for a while. They'll say, name of movie with something in its title had less something that's happening on the screen than this movie, and that annoys me. I don't know why I'm harping on that though, because I really enjoy Riff Tracks. I particularly like the fact that they've started recently doing more, where they've gone back to kind of the roots of Mystery Science Theater and actually doing bad movies and getting the rights to release them as like a video on demand instead of always doing popular movies and letting you get the riffs, which is sort of the point of Riff Tracks. But whatever, I don't know. I've talked about this for way too long. In the Nate Halos. Oh, I guess I'll switch my picture again. Sorry. There's a picture of my room. That chair that you see. Am I in that chair right now? I can't tell. No, I'm not. I must have swapped chairs at some point because the chair that I'm in doesn't have that same pattern. I think that chair started to break down or something. But yeah, that's my room. Isn't it nice? You can see slippers there. You can see... oh, no, you can't see my cursor. Never mind. But yeah, my bed's in the background with a bunch of crap piled on top of it. And there's water stacked up on the inside of the door there. That's flavored water. I can no longer get that. I no longer have access to that. But it's okay because I was getting sick of that flavor of water, and it was the only flavored water they had anyway. So anyway, Ninja Halos is really setting me up for a long, boring monologue here because he asked me who's my favorite Doctor Who. He says, "Who is your favorite doctor?" Who? Mine is Tom Baker. Well, the risk of sounding like an uber nerd, Tom Baker is such a trite such a pet. Anybody could just choose Tom Baker. I'm like, oh my god, that's like an anime fan who just really loves Naruto. I mean, it's like you're like an anime fan who likes Dragon Ball Z because you say that, oh, those people who watch Naruto, they just don't really know how much anime is out there. I prefer Dragon Ball Z. No, I'm just kidding. Tom Baker's probably my favorite doctor too. When I was a kid, there were basically 3 doctors, and I'm not talking about the episode where Omega came and like had gelatin monsters. No, there were 3 doctors that were airing on American television. Sunday afternoons, I think they were showing once a week. There would be an episode. I think it was an hour. It was like 2 episodes from John Pertwee, the 3rd Doctor. He was the Doctor during the early 70s when Doctor Who was at its most James Bond, most Avengers. Then twice a week, I think it was Monday and Wednesday. I don't know why I'm worried about being correct, because it's not like any of you can possibly call me out if I'm wrong. But the PBS in my area used to show in the afternoon 1 episode on Monday, half an hour, 1 episode on Wednesday, half an hour of Peter Davison Doctor Who. Peter Davison has been referred to by the great Douglas Adams as the blandest Doctor. And then on Saturday nights, or maybe it's Friday nights, so I think it was Saturday nights, they used to show Tom Baker. And my favorite when I was a kid was pretty clearly Tom Baker. He was the one I wanted to dress up as for Halloween when I was little. I remember that much. Probably just because he had a distinctive costume, but not that the 5th Doctor didn't. Jesus Christ! But I really didn't understand what his costume was about because we don't have cricket in America. But no, I think I liked Tom Baker for a couple of reasons. I liked K9 because I was a little kid, and little kids liked K9. And British fans who claim that they always hated K9 were either like way older than the show's target audience when they were watching it back in the day, or watching it those episodes for the first time now as adults, as like some kind of, I like Doctor Who, so I'm going to research the show, and they hate K9. But if you were a little kid, you loved K9 because K9 is a freaking robot dog. How could you not like K9 if you're a little kid? And I liked K9. I liked dark-haired Romana. Blonde Romana, I'm told, is much better. But when I was a little kid, I just remember thinking that dark-haired Romana was first. She was the real Romana. And I think the Key to Time season is probably my favorite set of episodes, mostly because there's only one story in there that really is just dull, and the last story is kind of boring too. But it's the big punch-up finale, so you have to like it, and the stories that lead into it are just all pretty awesome. But the big reason I like Tom Baker best was because it aired on late at night, like I think it was like 11 to 11:30 or something like that, and because I liked the show and because I was reading the Target novelizations that are actually available in America, my parents were like, okay, fine, we'll let you stay up and watch it. And when you're a kid, there is no bigger thrill than getting to stay up past your bedtime. So that totally colored my perceptions to think that Tom Baker was the best, because he was the one who let me stay up late. John Pertwee was my least favorite. Although I remember having watched Inferno when I was a kid and thinking it was freaking terrifying, and I've gone back and read the reviews of Inferno written by adult, serious literary fans, and they basically say that Inferno was a fantastic story. The only thing disappointing about it were the silly monsters. It was one of the Doctor Who episodes that they all had to feature monsters in those days. They pretty much still do today, but the monsters were kind of peripheral to the story. The real threat wasn't the monsters, but they were there, and they were silly. And I remember the monsters scared the crap out of me when I was a kid, mostly because that episode, the people got turned into monsters, and I think that scared me more than the idea of the monsters coming out and grabbing you. It was the idea that you would be exposed to, in that particular episode, it was like radiation, and you get turned into like a monster. That scared me. But I remember a reviewer saying that was the only thing about the story. Everything else was fantastic. And I was like, when I was a little kid, I even loved the frickin' monsters, so I would imagine that everything about the story was perfect. But I was young enough that I don't really remember all that well, except that it had it had like a Star Trek style alternate universe where the good guys were bad guys. And but instead of like having Star Trek Deep Space Nine where they make it silly and play it for laughs, or like the original Star Trek where they have like goofy sci-fi conceits like the Agony Booth or whatever. Doctor Who, Evil Unit, when the Doctor is being questioned by Evil Unit, they freaking pistol whip him. It's awesome. Anyway, and the Brigadier had an eye patch. It's ridiculous. But yeah, and the other Doctor then would be Peter Davison. And I had liked, when I was a kid, I liked Peter Davison's companions because they were, you know, serious Doctor Who fans will say that this is a horrible thing, but they had these young companions that were supposed to be audience identification figures for the kids, and oh, this is horrible, and how could they think that's what we wanted? And I'm like, it's like, no, when I was a little kid, it worked. I felt more for these little kids, or they weren't little kids, but they were closer to my age. I remember the most hated and loathed, supposedly the worst character in the history of British television was Adric. And when I was a kid, I liked Adric. He was like that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be a boy who traveled with Doctor Who. I identified with them stronger than I did with the girls, because, you know, they were girls. And I'm not a girl. How am I supposed to identify with them? But those episodes I liked better than John Pertwee. Years later, I think what I noticed is that I went on a big Doctor Who kick when the new series first came on, and I've collected DVDs of some of the old stuff that I remember from when I was a kid and watched them. And the show itself is usually kind of doesn't really get me all that going and excited unless I watch it. I'll watch it with the commentary track on then, so that I can like learn about the making of the show that I remember. And the Peter Davison is much better on the commentary track than Tom Baker, because Tom Baker is just kind of he doesn't really care about the show at all. He's clearly bored as he's watching it. And he'll tell you anecdotes about the actors who are involved, but usually not anecdotes about something that happened on the set of Doctor Who. He'll just tell you, oh, do you know that he used to raise dogs? And just basically just kind of talks down to the show and doesn't. Whereas Peter Davison actually pays attention. And depending on which of his companions or the adventure, sometimes he'll just have really funny interactions with the actors who play the companions, because they'll just kind of start almost doing a Mystery Science Theater of the show while they watch it. It's really kind of strange in a way. And my personal favorite is the episode. I'm going to talk about this for way too long. But I really love the way that in one of them, the Master shows up and rips off his mask, and it's this horribly cheesy moment in the story, and Peter Davison sees this, and they go into the credits, and everyone's like talking about how awful it is, and Peter Davison sees the face of the actor Anthony Ainley, who played the Master, and says, and they had been talking about how the ratings for that episode were. The rating for the next episode, after Anthony Ainley ripped off the mask and revealed he was the evil Master, were really high, and he says, well, that's the reason for our viewers. If there is fans. They found out he was going to be in it, and they turned up. And then Janet Fielding, the actress who plays Tegan, who I really hated as a kid. But anyway, Tegan, the actress who played Tegan, says something like, the fans at home can't see your face, because apparently he's laughing as he talks about how this actor who played the Master had these many, many fans who would tune in to see him. And Peter Davison then just goes, I'm very tired. That was funny. I don't know. I really liked it for some reason. Okay, but yeah, my favorite Doctor, I guess, after 20 minutes of discussion, my favorite Doctor is probably... it's probably Tom Baker overall, but I also think Colin Baker gets a bad rap. And when I watched went back and watched like the 5 Doctors and the 3 Doctors and 2 Doctors, any of the specials where there's more than one Doctor, when they're all on screen at the same time, Patrick Troughton always wipes the floor with everybody. He's the last of the black and white era Doctors. He kicks all of their asses when they get together in one place. Tom Baker never did any of the multi-Doctor specials, probably because he knew that he had a reputation as being the definitive Doctor, because he'd played the part for so long, and he knew nothing could happen, nothing good could come of being on stage with the rest, being on camera with the rest. He could either be upstaged or hold his own and gain nothing. So he notoriously avoided helping on those specials. But I really like the combination of the Patrick Troughton Doctor along with Jamie and Zoe. I've gone back and watched old DVDs of their episodes. I really enjoy them a lot. I think if that combination had been together for longer and had more stories, that might have been my favorite. I don't know. So there you go. That's more me talking about Doctor Who than you ever wanted to hear. And amongst the new Doctors, I guess David Tennant managed to be around longer than Chris Eccleston, so he probably had more good stories overall. And the new guy, I haven't seen much of him, but I really don't like him because he hasn't found anything to do with the character that's distinctive from David Tennant. He's just David Tennant take two. Hopefully he will find his own voice at some point. Oh God, enough of that. Moving on. Here's the reverse angle on my room. When I'm playing there on the computer, I'm not actually playing anything. I was watching. I had to go to a computer lab during my free time, download stuff to take back and watch, because at that point I didn't have internet in my room. And I think that is, let's get on with it, Total Recall, actually. That just happens to be what I had on the screen when I decided to take the pictures. It was not meant for public consumption at the time. Alright, the last question that Halo's asked is, do you think you'll ever do a Let's Play of Let's Play King of Dragon Pass? I can see that being very interesting. I doubt it. It's an interesting question, though. I had to IM Grimmeth when I found out Kakoskia was doing an LP of Dragon Pass. Grimmeth, being Grimmeth, didn't answer me. I guess if you don't ask a direct question, he doesn't deign to answer you. But, no, I had to notify Grimmeth because I found it really interesting. And I don't want to dwell on this at too great length either, because it's already going way long. But there was a guy who was a former subscriber, and he was a subscriber, and he was making a couple of negative comments on the Zach McCracken LP. He told me at one point that I was really stupid about the way I went about a puzzle, but mostly he was just saying things like, "Wow, this is really dull. No wonder this genre died." And I was like, "What the hell? What's wrong with you?" And it's like it bugged me a little bit. It was like, fine, whatever. And then I happened to notice that I don't check this very often. I don't want to give you the impression that I spend a lot of time looking at it, but I noticed on my YouTube account viewership stats stuff, I had an unsubscribe, and because of the country the unsubscription was from, it jumped out. If I hadn't unsubscribed from America, I would never notice. But because of this country, I knew who it was, and I was like, so I posted a message on his channel. I was just like, just out of curiosity, did you unsubscribe me because of Zach McCracken? Because that would be kind of hilarious. And he wrote back, and maybe I'm misremembering it, but it seemed to me kind of nasty. And he said, "Oh no, I'm just sick of my inbox being spammed with a bunch of Lennis 2 vids I could never possibly want to watch." So I commented a couple times over the course of Lennis 2 that it was the first LP I had done that was actually costing me viewers and subscribers. My viewership and subscriber base were actually declining from playing that game. That was the joke I was making. But I went to his channel with the intention of watching one or two of his videos, and then I went in there expecting them to not be good, because he does do LPs too, this guy. And I went in with the I'd already decided that I was going to not like his LPs, and that I was going to think I was much better than him, and that was going to make me feel so much better. And before I got around to actually watching any of them, I was like, this is stupid. It takes me forever to download and watch LPs from over here. Why in the world would I put all that time into doing it with setting out from the beginning to not enjoy it? So it was stupid, and I didn't do it, and I got over it. But I did notice that he was doing an LP of King of Dragon Pass. A couple of weeks later, Grimmeth started doing one, and I was like, your LP will never get anywhere near the viewers of Grimmeth. Grimmeth is, without even knowing it, he is acting as my agent, destroying you. But that was just kind of a silly thought that went through my head. But then, and I never got a chance to watch Grimmeth's LP of the game either, because I have to be very selective about what I watch over here. That's on the list of things I plan to watch when I get back to America. But apparently that was a really popular LP, because he did a follow-up, and people were clamoring for more videos, so he did another run-through. And I guess Kakoskia, who is, for all of my whining that I don't have enough viewers, and I'll note that Grimmeth has like 5 times the subscribers that I have. Well, Kakoskia probably has 10 times the subscribers that Grimmeth has, and there are people out there where I have 10 times as many subscribers as they do, and whatever. It's the circle of life, folks. But yeah, apparently Kakoskia was doing it, and so that game is getting a lot of attention on his channel, and then he, in his videos, was generous enough to mention the fact that Grimmeth and watching Grimmeth's LPs apparently was what turned him on to the game, Kakoskia. And as I stated, the first time I saw Kakoskia commenting on Grimmeth's channel, I think I said something like, "Wow, this is bigger than the time that RoboCop met Sting." Yeah. But anyway, That's my Let's Play King of Dragon Pass story. So the real answer to Ninja Halo's question, do I ever think I'll do one, is no. Because by the time I get done watching 2 LPs from Grimmeth and 1 from Kakoskia, I probably will not bother to go back and watch one from that guy that I said I had set out to dislike his videos in the beginning. Not indie click dislike and render my opinion against them, but just I intended to watch them and think that mine were better, ha ha ha. But no, by the time I've watched all these LPs of King of Dragon Pass, I will have nothing left to add, so it's very unlikely that I will do my own. But nothing's impossible. Like, I could, for example, shut up and get on with answering the questions. Okay, so that's it for Ninja Halos. I spent like freaking half an hour answering his 3 questions. Let's move on. Here's a picture of Pizza Hut, which is probably my favorite place to eat around here, frankly. Well, you can't eat there. You take the pizza back to your place and eat it, but there it is, and it really, that's curb appeal right there. Alright, BJ Ori, Bajorje, I don't know how you pronounce his name, but he asks, what exactly are you doing in Afghanistan? When will you be back for good? You aren't already, right? The story about Jordanian foot hygiene was hilarious. No, this isn't a foot fetish question. Do you have any other stories about the peculiarities of the people you live around? And then he says some complimentary things about my LPs. Okay. What do I do in Afghanistan? Well, I don't like to dwell on this very much. I don't like to talk about the specifics. I don't want to give the idea that it's super secret and cool and sexy, and that's why I can't talk about it. But we are discouraged from really talking about it that much. But yeah, basically, I'm a civil servant. I mean, I work for the Department of Defense. I'm not uniform. I'm not active duty military. I'm not former active duty military. I'm just wholly civilian, but it's a DoD function, so we go to DoD areas, and it's basically an audit, accounting, finance kind of thing. And our focus is not on the military directly. Our focus is on how is money being spent by the contractors that the military hires. Everything from the people who scrub the toilets, because the military doesn't do that anymore, to the people who build the stuff that gets the bad guys. Because yeah, it ain't like World War II anymore, folks. Soldiers really don't have a wide list of things that they do anymore. Well, I shouldn't say that, but yeah, it used to be that the Army fed itself, built its own everything. The logistics, they don't really do their own logistics anymore, not the way that they used to anyway. And that's kind of what my job is we go in and we look at how money's being spent and try to find where it's been overspent or hasn't been spent according to contract and try to get it back. It's not exciting, but it can be rewarding. You have to, if you find something that's useful. I'll tell you this much: I've probably paid my own salary by now, in terms of finding things that the government was able to recollect the money. So that's, I don't know. But anyway, I don't want to dwell on that. I've already said more about that than I ever intend to on this channel. It does involve a bit of traveling around on helicopters. That's probably the most interesting thing I've gotten to do, is like fly to different camps. And you get to, anytime you're in a military chopper, you have to have like helmets and body armor, so you end up looking pretty cool for an accountant. But anyway, but yeah, if you're kidding yourself if you think that it's the same as being a soldier and being out here. When will I be back for good? August, unless something changes. And he wants to know if I have any more stories of peculiarities of the people I live around. Well, I really shouldn't gossip about that stuff. And the different countries and the different ways, and I mean, because the Jordanian foot thing was really the biggest thing that got me. I don't remember if I told in the same video where I mentioned the Jordanian guy cleaning his feet in the sink, that there was apparently there's a prank that the Jordanians pull on each other, where they will unscrew the shower head in the showers, and they will take human feces and pack it inside the shower, the water spraying thing, and then screw the lid back on it, so the next person who turns on the water gets blasted with water and feces. Now apparently this is I don't want to say this is the height of humor in Jordan, because Lord knows our soldiers do things that would be considered pretty juvenile too. But apparently this was going on in facilities where the American Marines shared shower facilities with the Jordanians, and it led to some problems, as you might imagine. The only other thing I could mention is that there's a guy in our camp, and I won't say his name, but he doesn't work for the same group that I do, the same agency, but he's in a similar position where he's a government employee who's a civilian, and he's supposed to be tracking how logistics are being done. And he's an ex-Marine, but he's very young. He couldn't have been in the Marines for very long. He's not somebody who like retired from the Marines at the age of 38 and is now in his 40s and has had a life in the Marines before he became something else. No, this guy's pretty young. He was in the Marines for a while and he quit. But I think that might be why. He's more gung-ho about the Marines and how the Marines are great, and the Marines are the ones who are really taking all the risks out here, more so than the active duty Marines are. And they have every right to be gung-ho. I mean, they're the Marines. They're the ones who are out there actually going out and doing stuff, and they're the ones who are getting killed. But this guy's like so gung-ho about the Marines, and it didn't just, it wasn't just about saying that they're taking more risks than civilians or whatever. He's talking about how like the Air Force and the Army and the Navy, those guys are pussies compared to the Marines. And there was this one Air Force guy here who used to get really tired of it because he was active duty Air Force, like still in the Air Force. Listen to this ex-Marine guy talk about the Marines. And the fact is that the guy that I'm talking about, the ex-Marine, he's really short. I think he's probably got a little bit of a Napoleon complex because he's really always on about how macho he is, about how the ladies scream his name and stuff like that. But he's yelling about how the Air Force can't do nothing or whatever, and almost ready to get into a fight with the Air Force guy, because the Air Force guy's thing is that basically it's like, why would you be dumb enough to join the Marines? Go down there. You could be in an airplane, the most expensive and advanced piece of equipment ever built, flying around, getting a good view, and you could be down there in the mud like a dumbass. They fight back and forth. It's funny, but the funny part of the story, the part of the story that everyone seems to like when I tell it, is that the nickname that this ex-Marine guy got, because he's so gung-ho about how he's tough and badass and he works out and he's all cut and whatever, but he's short, and that's clearly a huge problem for him. He just can't get around that, because his nickname, and what you would say to him to get him to set him off, was you had to call him the littlest Marine. I almost feel bad for it. He was the littlest Marine. That would just drive him nuts. Okay, so I made fun of the Jordanians and our own guys, while simultaneously being a civilian who gets paid a bunch of money to be here, and other than the risk anybody takes when they fly in a helicopter, not really taking any risks. Here's a picture from the inside of a Porta-John. Hopefully you can read it. It says, "We the unwilling, led by the unqualified, to do the impossible for the ungrateful." And underneath someone has commented, "Then why did your dumbass sign the dotted line?" Alright, the next question is from Omicron 420. Who apparently does lots of pot and is a robot. That's what I can glean from his username. He says, "I know this is kind of off the gaming topic if there was one, but you seem well traveled, and I wanted to hear some of the foods you've had to eat. What was good, what was horrible. I could be completely wrong about the whole travel thing." Because I spent too much time talking about Mystery Science Theater and Doctor Who, I'm going to try to keep this short. Apologies to Omicron 420. But I would say that while I was here, there's not really a lot of food I could complain about. While I'm here in Afghanistan, it's basically cafeteria food, but generally very good. The food at Kandahar Airfield is pretty awful, and the British have really horrible food at their defects. This is kind of an answer to this, or kind of an answer to the previous question about, kooky stories of being over here. A friend of mine and I did go to the British, because I'm on a base that adjoins a British base. You can drive back and forth. There's no security checks between them. You can't get onto either base from the outside without passing through security. But once you're within the American base, you can get back and forth between there and the British base without any kind of security. And we went over and ate at one of the British dining facilities, and we signed in as contractors because we didn't see a sign-in for DoD civilians, and that's not uncommon. I've signed in as a contractor before just because it's simpler than trying to explain to the person who's sitting at the counter, and English is probably their second or third language if they speak it at all, why you're allowed to go in. So we just signed in as contractors. So I found out much later on we weren't allowed to eat there at all, and that we were basically, that we would have been told this if we'd made it clear who we were, but we didn't know that. We kind of snuck in, cheated our way in without even realizing that's what we were doing. But while we were there, it was kind of funny because a friend tried to get 2 different meat dishes, and this British food server guy's like, "Oh, hang on there, Matt. You can only have..." Oh, sorry, I need a drink of water. I'm sorry. He's like, hang on, mate. You can only have one entree. Which you don't have that rule. Um, Basically, where we're at, and the American ones, there are people behind the food counter who will, you tell them what you want, and they'll put it on your plate. You don't serve your own food, usually. Well, unless you go to the salad bar or something, but they usually serve it up for you. But the British, you have to serve it yourself. So when we start serving it ourselves, and first of all, we're already joking, like, oh, what kind of a defect is this? You have to serve our own food? This isn't civilized at all. Then the guy comes out from behind the counter and starts telling us that we're doing it wrong. It's like, you're only allowed to have one entree. And we're joking about it later on. We're like, whoa, what kind of a pig are you, you bloody Yanks? You're going to eat 4 or 5 meals today? So that was fun for us. But as far as food I've eaten while I'm here, probably the most interesting meal I've had while I was here was when we were out doing, as part of our auditing, we were out talking to the Afghan linguists who are hired and trained by companies and then given to military units to travel with them and translate the locals' speech. Dari and Pashto, and I went and ate at their dining facility in a camp, which was actually run by Afghans. Afghans ate there. Americans are allowed to go in, and I just thought it would be fun and interesting to go in and eat their food. And I was there at the camp once with another person from my agency, and they didn't want to do that. Then I was at the same camp again for a follow-up, and I was the only person from my agency. So I got my handlers from the company who go with us and make sure that we don't see anything really damning. And they took me in there, and I ate, and it was good. And they had they had these kind of peas and this very spicy sauce, and they had meat with sauce, and they had something that was similar to Indian naan bread, and it was all really good and very tasty. It's very sort of savory. I can't remember which character from Steamboat Chronicles that is, or I would make jokes. I think Savory is the woman who turns out to be evil. But yeah, it was really good and really enjoyable. And then when I told the other people from my agency that I ate there, they were like, you must get yourself checked. Well, the guy who told me this was Ukrainian. It's like, please, you must get yourself checked immediately for worms. You have probably got some kind of horrible infection. So that was just kind of like, it's innately racist if you eat it. I guess he was kidding. But it was like, if we even eat the food those people eat, you're going to get horrible third world diseases. I said I was going to keep that short. Totally failed on that score. And what was the other? I did have one other thing I was going to say about food, but it's kind of slipped my mind now. So, yeah, we got Mongolian barbecue, but that wasn't what I was going to talk about. I was going to talk about an example of food here that wasn't good. But it's gone now. So anyway, yeah, I did eat Afghan food. I don't know what any of it was called because the people who served it to me didn't speak English. But it was like chicken and rice, and I mixed the sauce and the rice like it was Indian, and it was pretty tasty. And the peas were the interesting thing. There was some kind of peas with like this really spicy sauce. It was very good. Really enjoyed it. And as all Eastern, anything from like the region around India, they always seem to have like these weird kind of yogurts. I guess they're supposed to be dessert, or maybe you're supposed to dip things in them, but there's always some kind of cream-based thing that's like really sour and bizarre. And as always, I tried it and didn't understand what the deal with it was and didn't eat it. So, yeah. Omicron 420 also asks, did I just switch the picture? Boom. There's instructions. These are not the official ones. These were put up by somebody as a joke on how to use the Porta-Johns. The right column, second picture, one in the middle there with the guy like squatting over the toilet, that is a real sign that goes up in the toilets around here, because the guys from we have what we call Western toilets and Eastern toilets. The guys from some of these countries do not use commodes like we have in the West. They basically, in their toilets, they'll have a closed-off area where nobody can see what they're doing, usually like a curtain in front of it or something, and there's just a hole, and you just squat over it and you do your business. Apparently they have the same kind of thing in Japan. But they have to have these signs because they're having problems with guys from, Nepal and India, and India is a very interesting country, a huge disparity between the wealthiest, and it's risky to even use this word, but the most sophisticated, the most Western residents of India, and the ones who are a little bit more old-fashioned. But yeah, guys from those countries would be coming in, and they'd be standing on the commodes and squatting over them and breaking the commodes and hurting themselves. So that's a real sign. The other ones that don't stand in front of it and urinate into it, that might be real, because there's a little urinal thing off to the side, most of them. But they don't throw up in it, they don't fish in it, and they don't pee in it like dog style. Those are somebody's sense of humor where they went out and they made those signs up. Omicron also asked me, I was wondering if you were ever a fan of the game Sacrifice. If you don't have to answer that, but I highly recommend the game. I think it's cheap on GOG. I actually know what GOG is now because I was looking for Infocom games last night and I came across GOG. Up until that point, I really didn't know. But no, my answer to that is I'm not a fan of the game Sacrifice because I'd never heard of it before. I'm sure it's a fine game, though. Anyway, thanks for taking the time to read this message. You really seem like a chill dude. I'm glad I created that impression. Not everybody from my real life would agree with you. Let's move on.